Hello, I'm Bob Anderson, and welcome to Stretching. You know, we all have one thing in common, and that's tightness and stiffness. And I think one of the main benefits of stretching is being able to reduce this tightness and stiffness to feel better. Stretching with me will be Debbie Gentili and Marlon Walters. Now, you don't have to be flexible to learn how to stretch correctly. All you need to do is learn how to stretch by a feeling and not worry about how far you're doing it. Anybody can learn how to stretch no matter how inflexible you are. Before we start stretching, we need to get in and learn the basic techniques of it and why we don't stretch as far as we can. We're not going to stretch in the drastic stretch. I feel that most people who stretch have a tendency to be out there in this area. The drastic stretch, as far as they can stretch, treating stretching as exercise. What we're going to concentrate on are the easy stretches and the developmental stretches. The reason that people don't use these usually is because they don't think that they're going to work. They think that stretching is exercise. The farther the better, no gain without pain. If it hurts, I'm doing it right. That simply is not true. Now, when I do a stretch, I don't care about how far. I don't have a predetermined idea of how far I'm going to stretch. I'm going to let my body tell me how far to go. I'm going to get into the feeling. I'm not going to go out and say, yeah, I'm going to try to touch my toes or put my elbow to my toe. All I'm going to do is lean forward to a point where I feel slight tension. I'm going to a point where if someone asked me how it felt, I'd say, I feel it, but it doesn't hurt. It's a very easy feeling to stretch. It's very mild. It's comfortable. Then what will happen if I'm stretching right after about 5 to 10 seconds, the feeling of the stretch will start to diminish, become less. Then at that point, I move a little bit farther into the stretch and I create more tension again. What you don't want when you stretch is a feeling of stretch that grows in intensity the longer you hold it or becomes painful. That's the way your body's trying to tell you that you're doing too much and you should ease off into something that's more comfortable. If you stretch too far, you know what happens? You activate what's known as a stretch reflex. If you've ever touched something that's real hot, you don't think, oh, my hand's burning, I think I'll pull it out of the fire. You have a natural stretch reflex action where your hand just automatically comes back. Similar things happen when you stretch too far. Your body thinks it's going to get injured, and so the very muscle tissues that you're trying to elongate and stretch and reduce in tension feel that they're going to be injured because of this nerve, muscle, tendon related response, and a contraction of the very area that you're trying to stretch takes place, totally defeating the purpose of stretch. So what we're trying to do is get a relaxation response when we stretch. We're not trying to activate that stretch reflex to any great extent. So what I do is I gently go into a stretch. I concentrate on my breathing as I go in too, because I think that's also very helpful and relaxing. I breathe out. I concentrate on my exhale as I go into the stretch, and I do slow, rhythmical breathing. And then after I go in and find that feeling, I start to analyze that feeling. And that feeling is going to tell me whether I'm stretching right or not. And it's okay, and I want you to find a feeling of stretch that feels good to you, that you can like. So I'm down here, I feel stretch for a while, 10 seconds or so, and then the feeling will start to diminish. And at that point, my body's saying, okay, it's all right, you can go a little bit farther now. I'm not worried, I'm not on red alert. So I go a little bit farther into the stretch, and it becomes a little more of a stretch, but it's very constant, it's very comfortable. And then I can hold it. And at this point, I can release tension, I can work on my flexibility, and I can actually like the feeling of stretch. What I want you to do is to stretch along with us while I show you how to stretch correctly and introduce you to the feeling of a good stretch. Now let's get started with some stretches for the neck and the back. These stretches are designed to reduce back tension and stiffness. In this stretch, the main thing is to make sure your heels are a comfortable distance from your groin, your fingers are interlaced on your chest, and if necessary, and if it feels more comfortable to you, and your neck hyperextends in that position, feel free to put a little pillow or towel behind your head, and that'll take out that hyperextension. Okay, in this stretch, as I talked about before, the idea is to let gravity do the stretch. The more you can relax your knees downward and visualize your knees going downward and relax the top of the hips, the more you're going to get out of this. It's a very comfortable position, and the concentration is on relaxation. It's very helpful to shut your eyes. It's much easier to relax when you shut your eyes. Okay, Marlon, what I want you to do from this position is just to straighten out your left leg, Keep your right leg flexed, and then just reach down the Williams flexion stretch here. And I want you to grab underneath your knee joint here, the thigh, and just gently bring this knee towards your chest. For a lot of people who do this, they're not going to feel that much of a stretch, and that's fine. The main thing when you stretch your back is that you're comfortable. I like holding these stretches for 15 to 30 seconds at extremely mild, comfortable tensions. Okay, go ahead and switch legs. Gently pull the other knee toward your chest, and just get comfortable. Think about your shoulders being relaxed, think about your feet being relaxed, and think about your face being relaxed. Don't let your teeth touch. Marlon looks very comfortable. It's a very easy stretch to learn. It's a very easy stretch to remember. Okay, Marlon, let's go back into the soles of the feet together again. Lying groin stretch. Very comfortable. Okay, now what we're going to do is take away Marlon's pillow here, towel. Then I'm going to have him interlace his fingers behind his head. Okay, now the way to stretch the back of your neck is to gently use the power of your arms to gently pull your head forward, thinking elbows going toward mid-thigh without using your abdominal muscles. Do not use your abdominal muscles to assist your upper body upward. Gently pull your head forward till you feel a slight stretch in the back of your neck. Hold it for 5 to 10 seconds. Mild tension, comfortable. Shut your eyes when you do this one. I think it's a very good stretch to naturally shut your eyes with. And let your head go back down to the floor, elbows out to the side. Then the next thing we're going to do is called a shoulder blade pinch, and that's for tension right in the middle of your back. A lot of people complain about tension be right in the middle of their back between the shoulder blades, and I think this really helps reduce some of that tension. And it's called a shoulder blade pinch. And all Marlon's trying to do, and you're not going to be able to see it too well, but he's going to try to bring the insides of his shoulder blades together. It's called a shoulder blade pinch. So you're going to try to pinch them together, feel some mild tension, and hold it like a controlled fist. About 60% of your strength. Hold it for about 5 or 6 seconds, and then let go of the tension and relax. Then the next thing to do is now gently pull your head forward again until you feel an easy stretch in the back of the neck. The main thing is to be comfortable and have control over the feeling. Any stretch feeling that grows in intensity the longer you hold it is the way your body's trying to tell you that you've done too much. Okay, let your head go back down to the floor, elbows out to the side. Now let's just bring the knees up. Now you're going to feel that when you do that. Okay, next stretch we're going to do is a stretch for the outside of the hip and low back. I call this the secretary stretch. It's just a nickname I have for it. The key to this stretch is making sure the outside border of your right foot is just to the inside border of your right hip. So I want Marlon to take his left foot, left leg, bend it, and set it on the outside of his right leg. And let's make sure that we have our fingers interlaced behind our head here. It makes a little platform for the back of our head. Would you like a pillow? Okay. Don't be afraid to use a pillow if you need to in some of these. Some people's necks are a little tighter than others. Okay, the way you do this stretch is you use your left leg to pull your right knee over toward the left. As you roll onto your left hip, you keep your shoulders down, and you let your right hip rotate up off the floor. The feeling of the stretch is right in through this area here, the side of the hip and in through the low back. Some people will even feel the stretch up in through the chest area and through the intercostal muscles of the rib cage. I like to hold this stretch for a fairly long time, but at extremely mild tensions, anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds. Okay, Marlon, we're going to come out of that slowly, and then switch legs. Take your right leg, put it over your left leg. Make sure the inside border of your left foot is just to the inside border of your left hip. Now let's go into the stretch. Keep your shoulders down. Shoulders are down. Then you have a good angle for stretch. If you let your shoulders rotate with your hip, it comes up off the floor, then you lose the angle for stretch. And the stretch is right through the side of the hip and low back. It's my favorite low back stretch. Okay, come back out of this. Now just go ahead and gently straighten your legs out. Marlon, you like that lying groin stretch, huh? Now put your arms over your head, straight out behind you. And what I want you to do is an elongation stretch. All of us are familiar with this stretch. We've done it all our lives. And I want you to concentrate on extending your arms and pointing your fingers, at the same time pointing your toes. What feels good about this is when you add a yawn to it. And sometimes the word yawn will make you yawn. See, I got him going right now. Good yawn. And stretch. 4 or 5 seconds, and then relax. Another stretch from this position is a diagonal stretch across the body. And the way you do this is you simply elongate the right arm, point your fingers, at the same time stretch with your left leg. So you're stretching across your body. 4 to 5 seconds, and then relax. If you watch your animals, they'll teach you this kind of stretching right now. They all do it. Okay, left arm, point your fingers. Make yourself as tall as you can, Marlon. Make yourself tall. Okay, now relax. Good. Okay, let's go into a hook line position. Knees bent. And I'm going to show you an exercise for the abdominal area, because a strong back is dependent not only on stretching the back, but also on strengthening the abdominal muscles. And to strengthen the abdominal muscles, I've chosen a simple, common exercise called the ab curl. Other people call it the crunch. But I think it's a very safe way to work on abdominal muscles. But the key to this exercise is that when you start it, you bring your chin towards your chest. And then when you pull up, you're going to concentrate on pulling up right from the upper part of the abdominal muscles. And you're going to come up to about 30 degrees, and then you're going to go back down to this point. But you're not going to let your head go all the way back down. You're going to keep your chin in. Okay, let's do about 5 of these. Pull up and down. Get a little rhythm here. And keep your chin toward your chest. Don't let your chin go away from the chest. Okay, a few more. Go ahead and do them. That's it. Can you feel it? Good. What I like to do is to combine this exercise with a lot of the stretches. So I may stretch my neck and then do some ab curls, and I may stretch my low back and then come in and do some ab curls. So I'm stretching and strengthening a lot when I do my low back stretches. I just add strengthening to it. Okay, one other stretch we're going to go through here now. It's called leg over. And this is a very simple stretch. It may sound a little complicated, but it actually is a very simple stretch. You take your right arm, extend it straight out from your right shoulder, straight out. Then you're going to take your right foot and set it on the outside of your left knee. Then you're taking your left hand and putting it on top of the right thigh, just above the knee, on the outside of the thigh. Okay, now the way you get the stretch is just to turn and look over to the hand that's extended out from your shoulder, and then gently pull your right knee over toward the left as you roll up onto your left hip. You let your right hip come up off the floor. You keep your shoulders flat, and you should be able to feel a stretch right through the small of the back. Now, everybody's a little bit different. Some people maybe feel some stretch up here and through the rib cage. Other people may feel the stretch right here along the side of the hip. But generally speaking, this is a good way to get right through the small of the back. Okay, let's switch legs. Go to the other side. Left hand directly out from your left shoulder. Right hand on top of left thigh, just above the knee. Let's go into this stretch. And these stretches I like to hold anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds. Mild tension. The more comfortable you can make the stretch, the better it's going to work for you. It's really a key. The more comfortable it feels, the better it's going to work. The next thing we're going to do is an extension for the back. And I'm going to show you what I think is one of the safer ways to do an extension. And I think in this area, what we want for our backs is not to feel them. We want to say, I feel fine, everything's okay. And to accomplish that, you don't have to stretch a long ways. Just rise up onto your elbows real slowly. And it's all right to let your head even go forward a little bit and relax. And not your head so much as your chin, excuse me. There you go. One thing I really don't think you should do if you have a lot of tightness in your low back here and you've had some problems, I don't think that this is a good way to do that stretch, is to put a lot of extra strain on the low back by hyperextending. Very comfortable stretch. Feels good. It's a very natural position to get into, but a lot of us don't do extensions anymore, and this, I feel, is one of the safer ways to do an extension on the back. Okay, go ahead and just go down again, Marlon. And I think doing these at least 2 or 3 times at the end of a routine is very, very helpful. So let's rise up one more time and be comfortable. Just feel around your body, and if you have tension around certain places, just ask those places to relax. It's nice to feel in control of yourself. And that's what stretching means. It's doing stretches that you can control, that feel good. Okay, let your head go back down and your body. Okay, now let's roll into a very restful fetus position. I think after you've worked on your back for a while, like we have, a good way to end it is with 2 or 3 minutes in the fetus position, where you almost fall asleep if you want, just to be restful for a few minutes. And in this position, there is no pressure on the back. It's very comfortable. I think a lot of us may sleep like this. Now we're going to do a routine for the legs, groin and hips, and feet. This is an excellent routine for walkers and runners. The first stretch we're going to do is a standing calf stretch. Everyone please follow along with us, just like Marlon. Key to this stretch is making sure the back foot is pointed straight ahead again. The back leg is held straight, and your hips are moved forward to get stretch into the calf. Now, generally speaking, I like to hold this for about 30 seconds with a very mild tension. Then only after the tension reduces do I go into more of a stretch. When you do this stretch, make sure the heel is kept down all through the stretch. I do not want the heel up off the ground when you do this stretch. And then from there, I like to go in to an opposite hand, opposite foot stretch. It's very important for foot control that you hold in between the ankle joint and the toes. And this stretches the front of the knee and the thigh. Now, the way you stretch the front of the knee is simply by pulling your heel toward the middle of your rear end until you feel some slight stretch in here. Then after you've done that, and the tension has started to reduce a little bit, now maybe you want to stretch the front of the thigh, and that's simple to do. All you do is push your foot into your hand and bring your knee back slightly, and you're going to feel stretch in through the front of the thigh, the quadriceps. It's very good to hold on to something for balance on these. Some people don't need it, but I'd say, just to be safe, hold on to something. Okay, Debbie, go ahead and drop your foot down. Okay, now we're going to go in and stretch the other side. Remember, the foot is kept flat, pointed straight ahead. You're going to have to look back at your foot to make sure it's pointed straight ahead. It's the only way you can really tell. Back leg is straight, move your hips in, stretches the calf. Extremely important stretch. It's also recommended for people that have had shin splint problems, is stretching the calf. Okay, now to go into the Achilles tendon, it's a very simple move. You just push your weight back a little bit, bend your knee slightly, drop your hips down a little bit, go in and stretch the Achilles. Remember, the lightest stretch feeling you can create is probably the right place to stretch here. Do not think the farther the better, no gain without pain. This does not apply to stretching, and especially when you stretch the Achilles tendon. Okay, then we'll go into opposite hand, opposite foot again. This is a very safe way to stretch your knee because you have a very natural angle bend at the knee joint when you pull your heel toward the rear end. Your heel is not being pulled to the outside of the hip. It's being pulled to the middle of your rear end, which creates a very natural angle bend at the knee joint. Again, this stretches the knee joint itself when the knee is even with the other knee. Now, if you want to stretch the thigh, you just gently push your foot into your hand, pull your knee back slightly, and that puts the stretch into the front of the leg, the quadriceps. Okay, now when you're doing a stretch, you can easily tell when you're doing it right or not by the feeling of the stretch. And what you want with every stretch is a feeling that becomes less and less the longer you hold it initially. And that's a relaxation response. And you want to get this in every stretch before you move on to something more, into the developmental stretch. So we held it here for a while, and the feeling of the stretch after about 10 or 12 seconds should have diminished. Then at that point, if you want to increase the stretch, you can. But first, wait for that relaxation response. The next stretch we're going to do is the squat. It's a very good stretch, but it needs to be done correctly. And there's a number of ways to do it. Now, if you watch the way Marlon's doing it, he's doing it with support, and he's going down very, very slowly. His feet are slightly turned out. He's going to the point where he feels slight tension. I would say that most people will be able to do it very effectively that way. Okay, Debbie, let's see how it looks just going down into a regular squat here. And see how she's aligned here? The middle of the knee is dissecting the first and second toe. That's exactly what we want. I'm often asked at clinics, what is the perfect stretch a runner could do? And I always say that this is a perfect stretch because it naturally keeps good ankle flexibility, natural stretch on the Achilles tendon, work for the shins, hips, and low back. Of course, if you've had a knee injury, maybe this is not the position, but for most of us, this is an all right position. And if you feel tight in it, that's one thing. If you feel pain in it, that's another thing. I think tightness is okay, but pain is something that you should not, if you have pain, you should not do this stretch. Now, the way Marlon's doing it is perfect. He's under control, he's into it, he's relaxed, and he's at the point where it's good for him. Now, when you come out of this stretch, and see the way Marlon's doing, he's going to use that support to help himself out of it. And when Debbie comes out of it, she's going to go straight up. She's not going to throw her weight forward, but she's going to rise straight up from that stretch. Then the next stretch we're going to do is also very good for runners and walkers. And I call it the sprinter stretch. And the key to this stretch is right here. Making sure that the ankle joint is directly below the knee. And this stretch is for the front of the hip. I generally like to hold this stretch for 20 to 25 seconds. Mild tension. Then after the tension starts to reduce a little bit, I go back into a little bit more of a stretch. I'm always stretching with the idea that I'm in control of the stretch. The stretch is not telling me what to do. I'm telling the stretch what to do. Okay, Debbie, go ahead and switch legs here. Very important, again, that the ankle joint is directly below the knee, and that makes it easy to be able to stretch the front of the hip. And all she has to do when she's in this position is drop the front of that hip down. You think down, and that gives you the stretch. Actually, if you want to add a little bit more to this stretch, all you have to do is use your head, because the head is the primary control of your body. And if you want to add a little more stretch to different parts of your body, you can just use your head to do it. And if Debbie looks over her left shoulder here, behind her, just turns like that, and just kind of thinks of dropping her hip a little bit to the inside, now she'll take the stretch, and she puts it now into the outside of her hip. So she's taken one stretch, and just used her head to change the angle a little bit, and she's put the stretch into a completely different spot. I think it's very good to understand that stretching is something that you can make creative, and you don't always have to do the same position. Just by changing little various angles, you can make the stretch a lot different. Okay, from this stretch, we're going to go into the sitting groin stretch. It's a very common stretch. People do it all the time. I think some people have problems with it because they simply put their heels too close to the groin. Now, what I like to do is get a very comfortable distance between the heels and the groin so it feels good right away when I go into it. And then what I do, instead of grabbing on the feet real tight and trying to pull myself into some hunchback position, I gently grab onto my feet. I don't hold on to them real tight. It's like a relaxed tension I hold on to them. It's just the right tension. Bending forward, again, is right here through the thigh joints. If you initiate the movement forward with your head first, all you're going to do is round your back and look like the hunchback of Notre Dame. And I think everyone's trying to stay away from the hump. The next thing we're going to do is called a spinal twist. And Debbie's just going to straighten out both of her legs. And then she's going to take her right foot and set it on the outside of her left leg. Foot's just to the outside of her knee. And then she takes her left elbow and puts it on the outside of her right thigh. This is a very common stretch. If you've taken hatha yoga, you may have learned it there. Now, when you do this stretch, you want to make sure your hand is directly behind you, coming right out from the middle of your back. You're going to use this hand here, this arm, as control of the stretch for the side of your hip and low back. And the way you do this stretch is you gently take your elbow and push it against the outside of your right thigh over toward the left here. Same time you think of rotating your left hip over toward the right as you turn and look over your right shoulder. Okay, go ahead and switch legs here. Sometimes people get confused when they do the other side on this one. It's very easy to learn. But you just want to remember that this arm is going to control the stretch. The arm over the thigh. You gently take your right arm and push it gently against your left thigh over toward the right. Rotate the right hip over toward the left as you turn and look over your left shoulder. And that should give you a stretch along the side of your hip and in through your low back. I like to hold this stretch for about 10 or 15 seconds with mild, comfortable tension, like all the stretches. I tell people if you want to feel good from stretching, all you have to do is hold it where all the stretches feel good. And then what happens? Usually you feel good from doing it. Debbie's going to straighten out both legs. And then she's going to hold her right leg just like she'd hold a baby almost. She's going to take her left hand, put it around her right foot and ankle, and she's going to make sure that she's holding on above the ankle joint, and she's not holding on to the foot here and kind of torquing the foot and putting all kinds of stretch into the lateral part of the ankle. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that the hand is held here. And then obviously she's just holding her leg like she'd hold a baby, kind of like a cradle. And the way to do the stretch for the upper part of the hamstrings and the outside of the hip is as one unit, gently pull your leg toward your chest like this, simultaneously. Pull your leg toward your chest until you feel an easy stretch in the upper part of the hamstrings or outside of the hip. Okay, Debbie, go ahead and switch legs here. Again, I'd say the key for most of us when we first start stretching, because really we have a tendency to overdo physical things when we first start, is to go to the point where you feel the right stretches and then back off slightly and hold something that's more comfortable. We do have a tendency to overdo it when we first start, so just get into the habit of going in, feeling the tension, and then backing off slightly. That way you'll never get hurt stretching. Okay, what I want you to do next, Debbie, is to go into what I call the pancake. The pancake, I'm sure that's familiar to a lot of you. You might have seen it in gymnastics or ballet. Okay, remember, when you go into this stretch, you breathe out. Remember, again, bending through the thigh joints. Not starting with the head first. Quads relaxed, feet upright. Okay, slowly come out of this, Debbie, and what we're going to do is now stretch the left leg. I like the way Debbie does it here because I see a lot of people stretching out like this. They extend way out like that, and they tighten up their shoulders. They're not very relaxed. And I like to see people bend from their thigh joints, go to the point where they feel slight tension, and hold. I judge a lot on whether people are relaxed by how their arms are, and she's relaxed here in the elbows, her hands are relaxed, her feet are relaxed, and her shoulders are relaxed. And if your arms are out like this trying to do a stretch, that's tightening up your shoulders and your neck, and it's also preventing you from breathing the way you want to. You don't have to look flexible when you stretch. All you have to do is get into how can I create a stretch in the area of the body where I want to feel it. And it doesn't matter what you look like to get that stretch. We're all going to be a little bit different. Okay, now we're going down to the right. Remember, each side is different, and just go by the feeling you get. Don't compare sides. After you've got the right feeling of stretch, it's quite all right just to let your head go forward, concentrate on your breathing and the feeling of the stretch. Toes relaxed, ankle joint relaxed, foot upright. Extremely important. Get a much better stretch in the leg when your foot is upright or slightly turned in. Okay, slowly come out of that, Debbie, and then into the sitting groin stretch. I think that feels really great to do this after you've done the pancake. After you've really worked on the groin, to come back in with the knees slightly flexed like this, and it always feels really good to me to go in and feel that warm stretch in that area. One part of the body that I really like to stretch myself and massage are my feet. I find that they're the most neglected and yet most sensitive part of the body. And it feels good, just simply feels good to work on your feet. Now, one part of the foot that I think really needs to be stretched out is the top of the foot, the tendons of the toes. And the way I do this is very simple. I just take my opposite hand, opposite foot, and I'll place my right thumb right here at the base of my large toe, the ball of the foot. Then I extend my fingers over my toes and hold the front part of my foot in my hand. Then the way I get the stretching through the top of the foot is I simply push my thumb away from me as I bring the toes up along the side of my hip. And so while you're stretching the top of the foot, you can come in with the other hand, use the thumb, and start using friction massage across the bottom of your foot to stimulate the plantar fascia. Plantar fasciitis is a very, very common runner's problem. And I think if you work on your feet daily, stretching the top of your foot, massaging the bottom, is an excellent way to prevent injuries in this area. Also, another important part of the foot for flexibility is the ball of the foot. And our ability to run and to jump is greatly dependent on the flexibility we have in the ball of the foot and through the metatarsals. The way I like to work this area is I take my left thumb to left foot and I put my thumb right here between my first and second toe, right in the middle of the ball of the foot. Then I take my right thumb, put it between the fourth and the fifth toe, in the middle of the ball of the foot, and I have my fingers on the inside and the outside borders of the foot. And the way I do the little massage technique is I just rotate my thumbs in opposite directions as I pull the inside and the outside borders of the foot together at the same time. It's kind of like kneading bread. And this definitely feels real good. And then to keep good ankle flexibility, I just work on doing a simple, common ankle rotation, holding on the outside border of the foot. Don't forget to do both feet. This concludes the groin, hip, legs, and feet routine. Hi, Marlon. Ready for some upper body stretches?
I'm ready.
Good. The first one we're going to do is the cat stretch. And the way you do this is you put one arm out in front of you, and what I like to do is to rest my forehead on my forearm. Okay, the way you do this stretch is to keep this arm straight, and what you're going to concentrate on is pushing down with your palm here and pulling back from this area in here. And the way to get the stretch while you're resting your forehead on your forearm is just gently move your hips backwards. And then also think a little bit of pressing down as you do this. And that should give you a real good stretch in through the top of your shoulder, maybe even the armpit, and back here on the upper side of your, on the outside of your upper body here. Okay, let's do the other arm. And okay. Now the reason I rest my forehead on my forearm is it just makes it more relaxing for my neck. Remember, the way you get the stretch is just gently move those hips backwards, your rear end toward your heels, at least that's what you're thinking of. Pressing down here with the palm, pulling back here from the shoulder. Okay, you want to jump down here? We're going to get over here and do some upper body stretches. Okay, go ahead and interlace your fingers above your head. The first stretch we're going to do here, the standing upper body stretches, is done with your fingers interlaced, with the fingers to the outside of your hands, and all he's going to do is just reverse his hands and push his hands up toward the ceiling. When you do these, make sure your knees are slightly flexed, your feet are pointed straight ahead, and you feel comfortable. Make sure you're breathing, you're not letting your teeth touch. I don't want you clenching. And hold an easy stretch. This is a very, very good stretch, and I find myself doing this all the time, just spontaneously. Throughout the day, I'll do this stretch. Okay, just relax your arms down. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is called a shoulder shrug. A lot of people say, God, what do you do for your shoulders and your neck when you have lots of tension? And they want something that's quick, right now. What I show them are the shoulder shrugs. And the shoulder shrugs are simply just bringing your shoulder points up to your earlobes, holding that controlled tension for 3 to 5 seconds, relaxing your arms when you do it, feeling the tension, and then letting go. And when you let go, you want to think shoulders hang, shoulders down. That's the only thing the shoulders are designed to do, is to hang down. We're going to stretch the left side of Marlon's neck now. And it's a very simple stretch. All you do is just think of your ear going down toward your shoulder. Just lean your head to the side. And at the same time, you think of this opposite shoulder going down. That'll give a real good overall stretch to the top of the shoulder and the neck. We just hold these for about 3 to 5 seconds with mild tension. Anytime you do a neck stretch, you come out of it slowly. Then you come right to the middle, and then you lean to the other side. Thinking of ear down to the top of the shoulder, and the opposite shoulder going down. And that'll stretch the neck and the top of the shoulder. Always after stretching my neck, what I like to do is go back into a shoulder shrug again. Come back to the center, and do another shoulder shrug. And then shoulders hang, shoulders down. Feels good. The next stretch we're going to do is a stretch for the tricep, the outside of the upper arm and shoulder. And the way you do this, you just put your arm over your head, you reach back. That's right, just like that. Make sure your knees are slightly flexed for balance. And now the way to stretch the outside of the arm here is just to gently pull your elbow across toward the opposite shoulder. Okay, go ahead and switch arms. Okay, right from this stretch, if we want to make it more of a stretch and put it right down here and through the top of the hip, all you have to do is just gently pull your elbow across. And at the same time, what I want Marlon to do, and you too, is just to bend sideways. Your knees are slightly flexed, so it takes all the pressure off your back. And now the stretch will be all the way down here through the top of the hip. Okay, Marlon, slowly come out of that. Very good stretch. And shake them out a little bit. Maybe even, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Stretch that face out a little bit. Good. Okay, let's turn to the side here so everybody can see exactly what we're doing here. A little bit more even. Okay, good. Interlace your fingers behind your back. Okay, now when you do this, make sure your fingers are on the outside of your hands. And instead of trying to reverse your hands to do this stretch and push your palms away from you, what we're going to do is push our palms. We're going to push our hands down and away from us with our palms facing our back or our rear end. And at the same time, he's going to try to rotate his elbows to the inside like that. Perfect. Okay, now relax. After you've been sitting for a long period of time and you get up and you feel kind of stiff and you're kind of hunched over and everything, if you can get into a habit of doing a back extension, a real light back extension, as soon as you get out of a sitting position, a chair, or even a car, it'll help your back a lot. And the extension is something that we often neglect in terms of our back. We do very few extensions. And one of the extensions that I think is very safe to do, as long as you keep your knees slightly flexed and your feet pointed straight ahead, very easy to do, very natural. I see people doing this and they don't even know what they're doing sometimes, just as a reaction to tightness. Okay, what I want you to do is to place your hands right on your low back, about where the kidneys are, and gently push forward here and kind of slightly lean back up here. Just slightly. Just like that looks perfect. How's that feel, okay? Good. The knees are slightly flexed, which gives him control of the stretch. And it's just a very good stretch to make part of what you just normally do throughout the day. Just a habit. When you get up from sitting, just naturally go into a real gentle back extension. Okay, now relax your arms. We're going to head over to that wall and do some upper body stretches along the wall. I know the kind that you'll like for handball. Certain ways you may be able to do these. You can use the top of a refrigerator, but we're going to use just like this little ledge here, and I call this the refrigerator stretch. Really, it's a great stretch for the upper part of the body here, the back, the shoulders, and even the neck. Okay, what I want you to do, Marlon, and you're in a perfect position, you're balanced here, your knees are slightly flexed, your feet are pointed straight ahead, and all I want you to do is to let your head go forward, let your rear end come back, and drop your shoulders down. That looks great. And you're going to stretch all the way from right in through here, all the way back in through here. And I think for a lot of us, stretching the upper part of our body in the middle of the upper back is an area that's very hard to get to, and I think this stretch really feels good. So every time you go by your refrigerator, instead of opening it up and eating food that you might not need, stretch on it. And relax into it. I like holding the stretches for a little while. In fact, for me, the longer I hold the stretches at the real mild tensions, the more I get out of them and the better it feels. Okay, Marlon, now when you come out of this, kind of push yourself away and keep your knees flexed. You always want to keep your knees flexed when you come away from the wall so you don't put any pressure on your back. Okay, the next thing, and I think this is a very, very excellent stretch for people that play tennis, play golf, and you just want to keep some lateral flexibility in the spine and through the hips. And what you want to do is get about 12 to 14 inches away from a wall. Keep your knees slightly flexed, feet pointed straight ahead, just like Marlon. And then the way to do this stretch is just to take your hands about shoulder height and put them behind you on the wall. Okay, now that's a very good stretch for the back, a lateral stretch for the spine. And then what I like to do with this stretch to help simulate activity and give more stretch to the neck, and to let you know that the head is extremely important in stretching in terms of changing the stretch, is now to look over your shoulder and in front of you. Okay, just go ahead and do the other side. Now come out of these slowly. I don't want you to jerk out of them. If necessary, you might hold a stretch for a while and feel a little tight after coming out of it in certain other areas. I'd say do a shoulder shrug. If you have any tightness in your shoulders, do a shoulder shrug and then relax. Okay, let's go to the other side. Excellent. And just make sure those knees are slightly flexed. And then look straight ahead and stretch your back. You can see this really gets a lot of areas. And a lot of you that are going to do this are going to find out that you do feel tight in these areas, because unless these are challenged in the right kind of way, we do gradually lose our ability to bend and to twist. And so let's try to bring it back slowly but regularly. Okay, Marlon, come out of that real slow. You know, one stretch that I do all the time, you know, most of us take showers or baths every day. And so when you get out of there and you're drying off, what I like to do is take this towel and just put it over my head, grab it at each end, and just take with my arms straight if possible. And I like to grab at the end so it makes it a comfortable stretch. And I just use that towel and go right behind me like this. And if I find any spots that are tight, I just stop and hold for a little bit. And I continue down, then I come back up, and it feels real good. Real easy to do, and every day you can work a little bit on your arms and your shoulders every time you get a towel. You're drying off, do this 3 or 4 times. Marlon, I think that was a great routine, and thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bud.
I'm going to head over here and do some everyday stretches. What we're going to do now is a series that I call the everyday stretches. They take about 15 minutes and stretch most of the major muscle groups. Let's start with the fingers interlaced above the head. Push your palms up. Feel the stretch on the outside of the arms and upper part of the back. Hold a comfortable stretch and breathe. Next, a shoulder shrug. Bring your shoulder points up to your earlobes. Hold it for a bit. Feel some tension. Now lower your shoulders. Now gently turn your head to the side and stretch your neck. Be relaxed. Now the other side. Now gently pull your arm over as you lean to the side. Feel that stretch all along down your side to the top of your hip. Control that stretch by keeping your knees slightly flexed. Stretch by the feeling. Okay, let's switch and do the other side. Remember, in stretching, always a little bit less is better than a little bit more. Next, interlace your fingers behind your back and gently stretch out the chest. This is real good if you have tension in the back. And this is one that you can do any place at any time. Very good for people that have rounded shoulders. Now a standing back extension. Gently push your palms against your kidneys. Keep your knees slightly flexed. Very good for extension of the back. Now we'll go in and stretch the calf out. Make sure the back foot is pointed straight ahead, the back leg is kept straight, and move your hips slightly forward with your foot flat until you feel an easy stretch in the back of your lower leg. If someone asks you how this stretch felt, you'd say, I feel it, but it doesn't hurt. The main thing with stretching is a long, sustained, mild stretch with no bouncing. Okay, let's switch legs, do the other calf. Feel the stretch. Let the feeling of the stretch guide you in your stretching. Keep the heel down, the back leg straight. Move your hips in to feel the stretch. Now let's work on the quadriceps. Opposite hand, opposite foot. Just reach down and grab between the foot, top of the foot and toes. Gently pull your heel toward the middle of your rear end. It's a very good stretch for the knee and the thigh. One of the safest ways to stretch your knee. Okay, let's switch legs. Hold a stretch that's comfortable. The tendency lots of times when people start doing new things is to overdo it. So always remember to ease off a slight bit after you create what you think is the right stretch so you're not overstretching. Okay, now down into the squat. And I like to hold on to something when I do this. It gives me good balance. I'm relaxed. I can keep my feet flat. Now remember, if you've had a severe knee problem, you may not want to do this. But if you can ease yourself into it, I think you'll like the stretch very much. I often recommend this to runners who are looking for that one magic stretch. Make sure you use your quads to come out of this stretch. Now we're going to do a stretch for the front of your hip and back. The key to this stretch is with the alignment of the foot and the knee. The foot should be directly below the knee. Just drop your hip down and feel the stretch in the front of your hip. Concentrate on the feeling and breathe relaxed. No bouncing. Okay, switch legs. Let's stretch the other hip. Keep yourself aligned. If this bothers your knees, make sure you put a little pad underneath your knee, and that'll take some of the pressure off of it. The next stretch we're going to do is a stretch for the top of the foot. Stretches the tendons of the toes. At the same time, relaxes the bottom of the foot. Very important part of the body to keep flexible. Okay, switch legs. Stretch the top of the other foot. It's very important to keep the tendons of the toes flexible. Okay, now let's go in and massage the ball of the foot. Massaging the feet feels great. You can do it every day. Feet never get tired of it. A little friction massage across the bottom of the foot. Stimulate those nerves. Appreciate your feet. Okay, now friction massage on the top and the bottom at the same time, and back into the ball of the foot. And a little more friction massage. Okay, let's do this same routine for the other foot. You need to appreciate your feet. They're your little wings. They allow you to fly around. They get you where you want to go. Also, it's very good for your hands to work on your feet. It's very stimulating for your hands. It helps strengthen your hands. Now let's go into the sitting groin stretch. Get in a comfortable position. Heels a short distance from your groin. Make sure you bend forward through the thigh joints. And feel a comfortable stretch. Next, left foot outside of right knee. The spinal twist. Turn to look over your shoulder behind you. Gently push with your left elbow against the outside of your right thigh. Feel the stretch, low back and side of hip. Okay, let's switch sides. Do the other side. Control the stretch. Let the feeling tell you where to go. Breathe relaxed. Now back into the sitting groin. And get comfortable with this stretch. Create a feeling that actually feels good to you. And don't worry about how far you're stretching. Get into the feel. Okay, now let's go into a straight leg, bent knee. Keep the right leg out in front of you, straight. But I don't want your leg locked. Make sure the thigh is soft, foot is upright, no tension in your toes, and you bend forward through the thigh joints. Only go to a point where you feel mild tension. Okay, let's switch legs and do the other side. Now you can have a straight leg without locking your knee. So see, keep your quadriceps relaxed while you do the stretch. and make sure you make the movement forward initially through your thigh joints and not with your head. Keep your arms and shoulders relaxed. Next stretch, lying groin stretch. Put the soles of your feet together and let your knees hang open. Concentrate on being relaxed. Shut your eyes. If necessary, put a little pillow behind your head. It might make your neck more comfortable if your neck hyperextends in this position. Elongation stretch, something you do all the time. Point your toes, reach above your head. Even yawn if you can. Try to get a big yawn going. Just stretch. Hold that stretch. Now relax. Okay, now interlace your fingers behind your head and gently pull your head forward. You're in a bent knee position when you do this. Hold the stretch for just a little bit. Not using your abdominal muscles, using the power of your arms. Now let your head go back down to the floor. Now try to bring the insides of your shoulder blades together. A little shoulder blade pinch. Create some tension in your upper back. Hold that tension. Now relax. And then again, gently pull your head forward again. Do this with your eyes shut, and I think you'll be able to gauge the feeling of stretch a lot better. Back down. Now right leg over left leg. Then use that right leg to pull the left leg over toward the right. Keep your shoulders down when you do this and let your hip rotate up off the floor until you feel a stretch along the side of your hip or low back. Okay, come out of it and switch legs. Now do the other side. Go by the feeling of the stretch. Don't worry about how far you're stretching. The most important thing is you create a feeling that you like. Okay, come out of it. Straighten out your left leg. Now gently pull your right knee toward your chest. And just lie there comfortably. Rotate your feet a little bit. And try to rest. Find a very comfortable position. Now switch and do the other leg. The main thing with this position is to be real relaxed. This is called the Williams flexion stretch. The last stretch is the leg over for the low back and side of hip. If you want stretching to work for you, make it comfortable. Make it feel good. Be in control of the stretch. Feel relaxed. Now change sides. Hold only stretch tensions that you can control. Enjoy stretching. Feel good with stretching. Now sit up. And that concludes the everyday stretches. I hope you have benefited from stretching no matter where you're headed, and hopefully it's for a great workout. See you tomorrow.